Hello, Gophers. My name is Morten.
And I'm Dominic St-Pierre.
And today we have the man behind Wails with us. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we talked last time. It was very interesting. I think I will have some deeper question this time, and because I tried Wails. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I have an old machine myself, so unfortunately there were some dependencies that were I could not install for some reason. But yeah, thank you so much for returning. So from what I heard, the V3 is pretty soon to be released.
That's correct. Yes, it's been in heavy alpha churn for the last I think nearly 3 years. So we're very much due to do a release. The last probably month or so, I've been ramping it up a lot more. I think I've been accused of being a bit of a perfectionist in the past, and I think this whole process has proven everybody right. So I'm gonna just draw a line in the sand and say this is good enough for now, and hopefully the beta release will be within the next 5 days. So yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Can you recap what exactly is the major changes between V2 and V3, and what about people that do a V2 at the moment? Is it will there be a lot of things that they will need to migrate and things that are broken in a sense?
Yeah, okay. So I'll start with the features because I think that probably answers the second question. So the features for V3, we have multiple windows. So that was the first big one. The first one was very much designed around a single window application. So the ability to just spawn as many windows as you like. That was being done through a procedural API. And I think that's probably the biggest change. With V2, it was almost config driven. So you defined your application, you defined the window size and all of the parameters that you would want as part of your window. You would point it at a embedded fs.fs, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
And it would basically serve the files from there. I suppose it didn't have to be embedded. Like you could just give it an fs.fs. I know one company was using squash.fs of all things, and that's how they were pushing out updates to their front end. So yeah, so V3 is very focused on procedural instead of that sort of like config driven. So you can spawn multiple windows. You have a lot more flexibility around the APIs as well, like what you can do with those windows. That's one of the core. I guess the biggest core fundamental difference is kind of config driven versus procedural. There's also a lot of features as well, as apart from the multiple windows, like you've got a native system tray support. So I think in Mac it's called notification icons, I think it is, in the top corner. And I think another thing to talk about is probably the bindings generator. I don't know, did you play with V2 at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Or was it V3? Yep. So in version 2, what would happen is it would actually compile a version of itself that was headless. So when it ran, it would enumerate the bindings. And so bindings are functions that you want to expose to the front end. They're Go functions. And so it would enumerate those bindings. And then it would write that out as JavaScript or TypeScript to disk. And then eventually it would compile itself again in non-headless mode. So you had this kind of strange sort of double pass, like a 2-pass method. what was interesting about that was anybody who had any kind of long-running process within their main file would just see a hang. And so that was awful. Like, it was a terrible UX. And honestly, it was just a terrible way of doing it. But it does work, like, pretty much all the time. So for V3, something that I kind of dreamed about doing was having a static analyzer. So something that would read through your code and understand what your bindings are based on just through the parsing of your files and the AST, work out exactly what it is that should be dumped on disk as bindings, and do it on the as part of the kind of build process. Does that make sense?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and that's nice. I did not knew that that you build a static analyzer. Wow, this is interesting. Go is so nice for that. I mean, the AST package is pretty nice to introspect. So, had you any major challenge building that, because it's way more complicated than just saying, oh, you know what, I will build a static analyzer. I tried to build that for one of my small package. I do have a small package for Go template. So it's just something on top because, well, for some reason, Temple for me is not working and things like that. But I wanted a way to have my template to be statically typed, ish in a sense. Also, just have some kind of, something that check. You know what? I'm passing this type, and the template is doing, some wrong assumption about what it's receiving. So I was not doing that. I was not knowing that you built that. So any challenges?
So I cannot claim credit for building that. I am definitely not clever enough to go through something that deep and complex. I was very, very fortunate to be approached by two people at roughly the same time. They opened up PRs for doing this. And
wow,
I think as an open source maintainer, involuntary open source maintainer, I never trained for it. Dealing with that was probably one of the hardest parts of the project. You had to say no to somebody. There was no way you could have both. And it was a little bit tricky. But I think I just had to look at it from a long-term perspective and just decide on one. And I was really fortunate that it just kind of fell together that one of the approaches was more aligned with kind of what I'd had in mind. And so the person who developed that spent an incredible amount of time really honing that in, taking feedback from the community, extending it in ways that I never thought could be done. For instance, we have a thing in Wails which is you can send events, and so it's kind of a unified events bus. So if you send an event in Go, you can receive it in Go, you can receive it in the front end in JavaScript or TypeScript. If you send it in the front end, you can actually receive. If you send it in the front end, you can receive it from Go. And one of the things that you can't really do very well with events like that is send different types of information, like typed information, across the wire.
Yeah.
So what this person did, his name's Massimo, by the way. He's an incredible programmer. He proposed the ability to actually register types against those events. So you could actually say, I'm registering this, let's say, person. So this struct, which has a name, address, whatever. And you can say, I'm using this in events. And so anywhere that you actually pass one of those into an event in your code, the static analyzer picks that up, understands exactly what that is, and can dump out perfect bindings that have that shape in TypeScript on the other side.
That's nice. That is
Yeah.
nice. So, and it's the same for the other way around. I guess that when the event is sent from JavaScript, it turns out to this person ghost tracked.
So in Go, you usually would write all of your types in Go. And so you'd be expecting that format coming in. It will translate it for you, yes.
Okay, so it's not coming as a bytes stream, so it's already converted in the Go
Correct.
side. Okay.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Yeah, so the static analyzer is all about providing that sort of glue code for you to be able to call Go methods from JavaScript.
What is the advantage of calling these events versus calling direct functions? So from the little I know so far about Wails, because I haven't used it, in production per se yet. So I can call some Go function from the JavaScript side. Why would I publish an event in that case? And is the Go side able to call JavaScript function as well? Or the only mechanism to communicate with JavaScript from Go is via those events?
So we did do a little bit of a deep dive into calling JavaScript functions from Go. It is possible, but it's not many people have asked for it. There's only been a couple of people asked for it. So I think academically it would kind of, close the circle if we did that. But there hasn't really been that much demand. The difference between calling a function and sending events, it's a good question. It's one I asked early on. It's like, do I really want to support two ways of doing this? But they're inherently different. So a call to a function, you're expecting a result. Whereas with events, you're really just sending notifications out and it's async. So they're two different tools for two different problems.
Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, that's interesting. So would you say that it was something that was difficult for you to accept? Because let me try to phrase that correctly. But let's say that you adopt this new static analyzer and this programmer for some reason cannot contribute anymore. So now you have this major piece that is pretty important to the V3, but in a sense the main person behind it might not be able to continue to contribute. Was that a concern?
I think it's a concern for anything, right? So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how big the feature is. If you didn't write it, you still have to reverse engineer it. You still have to understand how it works, and where you move it forward. That actually happened. I mean, Masaru had to take a break for a bit, and it was interesting. I think that problem has changed an awful lot over the last year. So I think it's much easier to ask an LLM to go and analyze a whole bunch of code and to provide you good feedback on structurally how that works. And so can cut down a lot of that cognitive load for you because it kind of breaks it down into chunks and you can go and verify those chunks, which is a lot easier than just staring at, my God, it must be like 400 files, I think is in that. 400 plus.
For the static analyzer?
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I might have exaggerated that. It seems like 400 when you look at it.
Definitely. I can imagine that an LLM can at least try to guess what's going on there way faster than a human can. That is for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, a project of this size, you kind of need to rely on that. If I was doing this as a full-time job, then for sure I could spend an awful lot more time manually looking at stuff. But these days you kind of have to wonder whether, is that the best use of my time? Like, time is the most precious resource, and where you spend it, you have to be careful, right?
Totally. So you would say that for you, I would guess that LLMs are kind of, helping more than, because we are hearing a lot of open source project these days that are receiving a tons of PRs and not always the good quality PRs and whatnot. So what is the situation for Wails? Is it a problem for you at the moment, or it's more, it's okay for now?
It's okay for now. Somebody brought this question up actually on the Discord channel. Look at me saying Discord channel, Discord server. There we go. Yeah, it was. They were asking, you worried there are some projects that have been completely swamped by AI PRs. And it was funny because it was around the time where I was going through a whole bunch of issues that were raised. And I was thinking, man, these are like one-liners, 1-2 lines. It would have been much better if this was just a PR. And it probably would have taken less time. So my response to that question was really, I would rather have a PR than no PR.
Yeah.
Because if there is no PR, then I have to do the PR.
Yeah.
And I would have to review the PR anyway, because I'd probably be using an LLM to generate the code for the PR. And so if somebody else has already done that stage for me, then that's fine. Now, the relevance of the PR is another thing, right? Like, is this something I want to accept? And that's, you could eyeball the PR description for that. Or you could get an LLM to summarize it for you. And so I think there's different levels of governance that you can introduce and different levels of ways of using AI to manage that. So I think my general answer is I think I'd fight fire with fire.
So you haven't adopted like a AI policy yet. It's more like if it's good, it's good.
I think that's my policy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
nice.
If it's good, it's good. If it's not good, it's not good. I don't care who wrote it or what wrote it.
Yeah. Now it's funny because we hear I follow what's it called, Mitchell Hashimoto, the guy behind HashiCorp, and I think he adopted a sort of similar approach, but he also added the vouch system to their ghosty repos. But I think he adopted the same approach, right? Like he also uses AI, and if it's good, it drives the project forward.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. There's an element of the. It's interesting you say about the. I think he wrote a project, didn't he? Was it Vouch? I think it was.
Yeah.
He was trying to automate a way of building a web of trust around PRs. I think it's a good idea. I do think it's a good idea.
I believe they did something around like you have to open an issue, and then if you get vouched for by other contributors, you can actually implement that issue, and then you are in the what's it called, pool of trusted people to actually then continue open PRs and add PRs to the project, which seems like an interesting approach.
I think the idea is good. I think that execution is practically problematic, and the reason I say that is because if you have somebody who, I don't know, lives in New Zealand and doesn't know like anybody, like how do they contribute? And will that be a barrier? They think, well, like I just want to add this. I'm happy to give my time to add this feature to this project I love. Now I'm kind of blocked. I'm gatekept by other people who I need to vouch for me. And how do I do that? So I don't know how Mitchell's got around that. How do you get people to vouch for you? Is it based on Like, is it some sort of like internet karma? Like you've answered some stuff in the discussions. I don't know. How does that work?
I think it's around the. I haven't looked deeply into it, but I believe it's around. If you, I think everyone can create an issue, and then if that is vouched for by someone to be of value, I think they get the approval to be able to create the PR, and that's the way they get in. But it also raises the point, if you have thousands of issues being raised, like you're probably still waiting for someone, right, to to actually take the time and look at it. So I think he is also, this is the best I can do with the current situation. But yeah, it's true. You probably discourage a lot of open source contributions, which is sad with given the state of the world, where there's a lot of vibe coders that just churn out stuff, and you never really get heard in that noise.
Yeah. Well, so
no, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it's kind of crazy to say that to contribute to an open source project in the future, you will need an audience. You will need to be extremely popular, and now you have more chance of your PR to be at least to resurface. It's kind of anti, open source in a sense. But on the other hand, there's still a problem in a lot of projects. I mean, receiving that amount of noise is sometimes problematic, and that is a hard problem to fix, I think.
Yeah, I think with like looking at it at slightly a higher level, like for me, it doesn't really matter about whether an LLM's authored some code or not. The bigger problem for me is if you say yes to an idea or an enhancement, which is something you're going to have to live with. Because as soon as you say yes, you have to keep it there until you maybe bump a major version and annoy people that you've dropped support for that feature. So I think maybe this could be stemmed more on a kind of workflow where you've got people voting on a proposal rather than an issue.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. Maybe it is the same thing. I don't know. It's something that I've kind of drafted for version 3 of Wails, which is it's the Wails enhancement proposal. And the idea behind that is that you essentially have a template that you fill out and you say what it is you'd like to enhance, why you'd like it there, and how you would go approach implementing it. And the idea is that you basically socialize that. You open that as a draft PR, and you socialize it. You bring it to Discord. You put it on the discussions, and if you can get people to vote on it, which is basically up thumbing on the emoji, then it's likely to move forward. It's likely, I'm likely to say, okay, this is cool. Like, I agree with this. I think this is great. It looks like there's a good lot of support. You've had some feedback for changes. I agree with those too. Let's iterate on this. And as soon as you get to a point where you fundamentally have the idea and you have an approach and you have, a way of implementing it that people think will be net benefit for the project, then the actual code bit is like, I don't really mind who writes the code. I don't really mind how that happens, because so long as it works as it's advertised and was designed and has good tests, it has good coverage, then I think you're going to stave off a lot of that issues, right? Where people are just opening up PRs with one-line changes.
Yeah.
Like if it's bug fixes, then sure. Like if you can find that many bugs and you're fixing them at that rate, then that's perfect. If you're adding enhancements and there's no enhancement proposal, then you can automate closing that, and you can say open up the enhancement proposal. And so I think it can kind of look after itself to a degree. Honestly, it's just mainly it's mainly an idea that I've got floating. And I do have some things in place, but I'm thinking that approach might be might have some legs.
I like that. I like that a lot. It should be definitely the way to go for a lot of projects, I think, because at the end of the day, the maintainers want to receive something that they either will help the community, give them something very important that they want, or like you were saying, important bug fixes and whatnot. So those are always interesting. But yeah, I like that, and it should probably be like that. But yeah, we will see. Let's return a little bit to Wails. So I'm very curious to know how a Go function can be exposed to a JavaScript runtime. So that that is so intriguing to me. I'm wondering if there's anything that you are doing with the web view. Is there a hidden comment or something like that you are using? Are you patching something? I'm very, very intrigued to know how a JavaScript can call a Go function.
It's a great question, Dom. It was something that I thought about when I first started the project, and it was over 8 years ago now that I started the project. That was one of the first things, obviously, that I had to tackle. So looking at the WebView library, I realized that there was a lot of things, like a lot of burden on the developer to be able to bridge that gap specifically. So that was something that I put a lot of thought into. Now there's kind of two ways. If you think about a browser kind of calls like external resources, right? Like it's gonna ask for a web page from a server. So you have this kind of prompting. You have this two-way communication, right? Which is initiated from the browser side. So web views obviously have that capability. So that's one way of communicating to a backend. The other way in a web view is that you can actually use something called post message, and all of the web views have this. So you essentially set up a hook on your host side, on your native side, and you say to the web view, expose this hook, expose this pathway through to be able to send a string. And that's pretty much all it does. I think WebView 2, which is the Windows WebView, added the capability of sending a JavaScript object, but I don't really see how that's any different to a string, really. At the end of the day, you're just dealing with information that's coming in as a string, and then you parse that on the server side. When I say server, I mean the Go side. It's not running over the network. It's in process. And then you essentially parse that. So for version 1 and 2, we used that method where you send the string over. And what it would do is on the client side, it would set up essentially a unique ID, and it would pass a unique ID through with the request, through with the string. The Go side would read that up. It would parse the information. So in there you would have, here is the function I'm calling. Here is an array of arguments that is going to be passed through. And obviously if there's any mismatches, then it would essentially send an async message back to the front end with the ID and the fact that it had errored and, an error message. And so the front end would resolve, would essentially, what it does is it links that ID to a promise. And so when you make the call to the back end, it essentially gives you a promise back. And then if that errors, then it essentially rejects it. And then if the call resolves, if the call is complete successfully, then the message gets sent back saying, yeah, it was good, here's the ID, and then it picks up the promise and then resolves the promise with the result that it had parsed back. So it's this kind of, it's two-way async, essentially, which brings its own little problems. You can get things out of whack a little bit. Like, some things may not come back.
Yeah.
So for V3, I decided to move over to using the HTTP protocol, but not over the network stack. So that's still in process. There's pros and cons to both approaches. HTTP obviously has more overhead in terms of what it sends and how it processes. However, the guarantees you get with it is kind of what we wanted to use it for anyway. So it was a pretty good option for us. The sort of string method was really bad. If you go and fetch an image, then Go converts those bytes to, I think it's base 64, and then sends those back as a base 64 string, which sometimes would get truncated because it was too big. Whereas at least with an HTTP protocol, you have all of that sort of chunking and that sort of the codecs are already there to convert between the different formats. And so the front end obviously is very much designed for dealing with HTTP traffic. So that's gotten around a lot of our issues. So for V3, we use the HTTP protocol, but in memory. And so you can just receive the call and then process it and then just respond as you normally would. This has also meant that we've able to attach things like let's say you've got a gin program, like a server program. So you can actually attach those same methods and it kind of expose those to the front end. So now you're actually calling methods on the front end rather than endpoints, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a little bit. I have so many questions now. Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, the post message is very interesting, but now I'm pretty interested into the V3 ways of doing things, because first of all, when you say in memory for the HTTP protocol, what are we talking about here? So, are you spawning any kind of real HTTP server on the Go side and this kind of dispatch the call to a function to the real Go function? And what does it mean to be in memory exactly from the WebView side of things?
Yeah, so what the Go side does is it does essentially two things. It first of all creates an in-memory HTTP server. So not on the network stack. It's something that can receive HTTP messages and can process them like a server. The second thing that happens is that the protocol. So we essentially have a custom protocol. So at the start of a URL you have got HTTP, or you might have HTTPS, or you might have mail to. So we have a Wails one, and you can register that with the WebView, and so you can say intercept all traffic that uses this protocol. And so that's what happens. So you essentially make all of those calls using that protocol. It gets picked up by the host, and then the host will just decode that message as normal and can respond in the normal way.
That is exciting, fantastic, very nice. This sounds great. So I guess that now you can pass the argument in the the request body and whatnot and format that properly in a sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it also unlocked a whole new thing in V3 as well, which was people asked about kind of plugins, like one of my visions when I first had V1 was, how can I sort of package Go and JavaScript code together? Like how can I do that? That would be awesome, because imagine having essentially Go-backed components that, works natively in your native app. And one of the things that kind of going down this HTTP route was essentially that we could provide a functionality called services. And so what a service is something you can register at the start, and it takes over from the concept of bindings. And what a service is it's more plugin like. It has an interface. So if you conform to the interface, then it's a service, and you can register it in your application. And it does a number of things for you. So not only will it generate the bindings for you, but it also gives you the ability to mount that service on a URL path from the front end. So you can now go to /service/ whatever it is that you mounted it as. And that service will have the standard Go function, the serve HTTP.
Yeah.
So if your service has that, you can mount it on the front end, and any request to that service will then turn up within that function body. So now you have a way of using Go's modules to create these bundles of functionality that you can expose to the front end. Does that make sense?
So the front end is calling URL now. It's not calling a Go function per se.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
A good example of that is we have a tutorial on the V3 website, which is a QR code generator, and so that happens on the the Go side.
Yeah.
But as a module, you can distribute it. You can, like, anybody can just import it and then attach it, and then your front end can now generate QR codes. And you can even put it in like an SRC, like an image tag in the SRC, and it will just appear at the front end.
So you can call the service function directly in the HTML attribute, and it will, since it's returning an image, it will all be good. So
Yeah.
from the JavaScript point of view, what am I calling? Am I calling something like, I guess I should import the service binding that were created, and now I'm able to just call the function?
So you have the option of doing both. So if you mount the service onto your application, then you can go down the URL route. But that actually goes to a serve HTTP function. So that's more designed for getting dynamic information from wherever you're calling URL to do a particular function. The QR code is a good example of that. You don't want to necessarily you could set up a function, right, saying create QR, and then call that, and then get the image back, and then use JavaScript to pump it into the right place. Like, you could still do that if you wanted to. But the idea behind mounting it on a URL is that, other third-party libraries that maybe you could use that would, call that URL to go and get information. Probably not explaining it that well.
Well, when you say mount, so let's keep the QR code example. So what am I putting exactly in the SRC attribute? Am I putting like Wails, // and now the service URL?
You actually just don't need the protocol, because the web view will go for, Wails // index.html, and so it remembers the protocol. Like, it remembers the
right, okay.
And so you're actually just using just paths. That's it.
Okay.
That's all you have to do.
Huh. Oh, that's great. Okay, so now it's way more similar to a real, typical web application now, in a sense.
Yeah. So much so that that's a good segue, actually, that you can actually compile that application into a server application. So now you can deploy it headless, and you can go there and it will function exactly the same.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty big change if I understand correctly. So now, okay, so we have multiple window. We have this new way of defining services. The tray icon. So the tray icon, is it working similarly in all OSs, like on Linux, Windows, and Mac? Is it like I'm defining some kind of, I guess, tray items or whatever, and I can react to clicks on those things?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. It works on all OSs. It works pretty well on all OSs. It works perfectly on Windows and Mac, but Linux is the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm sure you know what I mean by that. There's no one way to do it. I had somebody post I think it was probably on Discord, saying, "Oh, I'm on this version of Linux that I've never heard of, and when I do this, I get in a notification, I get a package ID in the notification, and is there a way to change that?" I'm like, I don't even know that we do that. I don't even know that we send that. I don't even know where that's coming from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Linux is just an absolute minefield. But in general, yeah, it works pretty well, and it doesn't rely on third-party libraries either. So that's handy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was trying to build a Wails application. I have this project that I want to build since 2002, if you can imagine. I will build it at some point in my life. I'm nearly there. And I want to use Wails. More than I was curious to hear. Have you built any kind of GUI application in your career?
No, I haven't. But I have considered it for when we talked about processing and dealing with the podcast and the video podcast. So I was actually thinking it could be a nice little side project when I also get some more time to use Wails for this part, with like audio processing and stuff like that. I think that could be cool, but I've never done it before. Mainly done web stuff.
Yeah, but that's the strong suit of Wails. I think is that it's still web stuff at the end of the day when you think about that. Lee, I was saying that to you last time, but for me, because I was playing, I was starting to play with TK the other day. I don't know why. I mean, I just like to play with things, but it's not accessible. Can you imagine that a 20-ish years old UI framework that isn't accessible? I was very, very surprised to find that. I tried to help Andy and the Find project to make the Find project be accessible, but it's a little bit out of my league, if I can say that. I don't know. I'm not a system programmer, right? I screen readers and accessibility is just like the static analyzing that you were talking about. Those are complex things. Where I was going with that. Yeah, so returning to my my project that I want to build, I wanted to build that from WSL, and I wanted to cross compile to Windows, but yeah, it was not working for me. So I think you are still depending on some. And I might be wrong there, but some graphic library that needs to exist on the OS to build?
So for Linux, that is true. But for Windows and Mac, it uses what's natively installed in the operating system.
But I cannot really easily cross-compile from Linux, my Windows binary, right?
No, you totally can. Yeah, so that's another thing that V3's introduced. We've got a Docker container. Like if you're willing to download, I think it's about 800 megs. But
I don't mind. I don't.
Yeah,
mind.
Exactly. But yeah, one of the I'll just quickly go over a couple of things maybe on this line. So one of the things we did in V3 was shift away shift away from kind of an opaque build system. I think we spoke about it last time that was going to happen. And we landed on using a project called Task File for doing that. And essentially the idea was to take all of the internal steps that need to be taken to generate a application like this. And there's more than people think. It's like generating the bindings, making sure the icons are in the right size and the right format, putting them together. On Mac, you create directory structures and put things in the right places. And so it was kind of like exposing all of that into what were essentially YAML files that task can run. And I worked with the guys on Task File as well to make Task work as a library. So that means that the Wails 3 CLI can run those things without an external dependency. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when you want to cross-compile, or when you want to compile on your own native platform, you would run, say, like Wails 3 build. But if you want to cross-compile, then you can just tell it, like, I want to do this on Mac, or I want to do this on Windows, and it will do that for you. And to kind of set that up, make that a bit easier for people, because you still have to kind of fiddle around with Docker a little bit and download an image from here, there, and everywhere. You can now run Wails 3 setup. So you install the binary using go install. You run Wails 3 setup, and it will launch a program that will essentially open a browser and guide you through like this setup steps, like a wizard, I think we used to call them, which will go through and it will ask you, what platforms you're interested in developing for. Do you want to, you need to install Docker, click here to go to the Docker site and install it, and it'll just kind of gently guide you through and download that in the background as well. So the idea being that by the time you get to the end, if you're on a reasonably good connection, it'll all be set up for you.
Nice. Okay. So and what? I are you saying that from my Linux box I should be able to create a Mac, legit binary?
Correct.
Oh,
Cool.
wow. That is great. That is exciting. Okay, and with the proper plist and then, like you were saying, the icons and whatnot, whatever the Mac wants.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And I don't need an Xcode license, or I don't know what, and things like that.
You do
to publish. I will.
Oh no, to publish. The only thing about publishing Mac apps is Apple have gotten more and more gatekeepery with their application deployments. So if you create an application that hasn't been signed with a developer certificate, then it's getting harder and harder to run that. It'll run fine on your machine, but as soon as somebody else gets it, it'll say things like, this is from an untrusted source, and normally you can click a button in the security section in the settings to say, yeah, that's fine, that's cool, I know this. Lee's all right. He's not trying to own my machine.
For now.
And for now. Or ever. Just going to make that clear. But yeah, they're getting more and more funny about that. So they're making it tighter and tighter. And I think it's, it's just, they're just trying to get more money out of people, right? Like they just want to sell more developer licenses.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to make that for sure, like it'll work, and it'll work on your local machines just fine.
That is great. Okay. That is nice, because personally I just like to build everything and be on Linux for accessibility reason. I needed to switch to Windows, but I'm doing nothing on Windows. It's so yeah. Now that you're saying, I might be able to start that project after 24 years. So V3 sounds pretty wow. Yeah, that was a major update. This sounds pretty amazing. So can you quickly tell maybe a small use case about the multi-window? I have a little bit difficulties to what kind of application need like multi-windows? Because the GIMP could be an example of things that image processing and things like that. So why user wanted multi-windows?
It's a great point. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people just use one window. But obviously, there is a great need for it. People really, really, really. That was the highest upvoted issue on the project.
Okay.
I mean that there's multiple things. I was thinking earlier, I've got a quick program, like a small program that will render markdown files, because I was getting fed up of the markdown renderer I had, and I was like, no, I want this. I want the ability to change themes and stuff. So I completely vibe coded this markdown viewer in Wails, and if I double click if I've got a really long file, say, and I'd want to see that, I want it all lined up in front of me. So I want to see each page, let's say, a whole bunch of notes for a podcast, for instance. Then it would be cool if you could open that multiple times, but it would be cool if you could do that without having the overhead of the main process multiple times. So that would be a good example of multiple windows, right?
Okay. Wait. I think I understand what you're saying. Okay, so because let's face it, we kind of add the ability to create multiple windows. We are in a web page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was not the problem. The problem was because, like you were saying, the main thread being blocked by all the the system events and whatnot. So the fact of having a totally different window, which is separated from that, could be beneficial. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's more that you have, let's say you've got a bit of overhead for each program. So let's say the Go runtime, right? So you've got the Go runtime, that's going to be in memory. You've got, a bunch of other stuff that's going to be in memory, taking up space. And then you have the front end, which you want to just use for rendering. If you want to have maybe two markdown files up on your screen at once, and you might want them in two separate windows. And you may want to be able to copy and paste between them. You may want to be able to interact between them for whatever reason. You might want to sync the status of some external resource across all of the windows whilst you're working. Yeah. So if you had them all as individual programs, that becomes a lot harder, right? But if you've got an application that is much more integrated, you could integrate multiple markdown files, you could display multiple markdown files in a markdown file viewer. You wouldn't have to have that overhead per process. Does that make sense? So you'd only have the one overhead, and the calls for rendering the markdown, they're going to be shared across all of those windows.
Nice. So you could essentially, you if you can turn it into, if I'm understanding correctly, you turn it into a server. So you can essentially enable multi editing if you go with the markdown example. So multiple people could work on the same markdown file in multiple windows, and it will all be synced across devices if they have the server running.
That's one way you could do it, yeah. But it would work that way on the desktop app as well.
Nice.
Something I probably should have told you earlier. I'm supporting mobile for V3.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. We have 6 minutes left, and you drop that? That is crazy.
Oh well, yeah. One of the big asks was, can we get this on mobile? So can we get it on server? Can we get it on mobile? So I decided, yeah, okay, I'll hold off the release and just get it all done. So the mobile version works. It's for iOS and Android, and the killer feature is you don't change anything about your program. Nothing. You can just compile your desktop app and it will run on your mobile.
That
Wow.
is crazy. Okay, so you're probably using the native web view of those platforms, and it just works.
Absolutely.
Do we have access to, I don't know, a couple of small, mobile device feature? I don't know what. I'm not a mobile developer, but is the camera accessible or things like that? Since it's web, I guess it's probably there.
Most of what's on the device is there. I'm just going to bring up a side by side.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so bindings works, events works, dialogues work. You've got all of the system stuff, so like clipboard, device info, screen metrics. You'll have keep awake, torch, brightness, biometrics, local notifications, secure storage, haptics, geolocation, accelerometer, proximity, text to speech. Yeah.
Wow.
So I've got a kitchen sink example in the repository right now, and yeah, you can just run that. I've got it installed on my iPhone, and it's wild. Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
Okay, well, this is exciting. Okay, just before we close, what do I need to put that into my phone while I'm developing? Is there a quick way for me to, I don't know, to just without the full package? I would hope. Is there a way for me to test my application?
So you can remember the task files I mentioned.
Yep.
So part of the default task files, you can just do, I think it's like Wails 3 iOS build will just build you the app. If you do iOS run, it will run in the simulator. So you need to install Xcode to run that. And if you do package, then it will install it on your connected iPhone. So part of that setup wizard that I mentioned earlier is to get your certificates and everything in place, and it will tell you what you need to install and the commands to install it as well. So that's how I got my test app on my phone.
Wow,
nice.
It was going to be experimental, but I kind of went a bit mad with it and decided, you know what, let's just release it. If there's bugs, there's bugs. But yeah,
how everything goes. We're just gonna create an MVP and then
yeah, exactly.
Nice.
I'm a little bit excited now. Maybe that will be bad for my SaaS because wow, I kind of want to build now this thing, and now that it's mobile as well, it's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, well, let me know what issue you had with your older computer. Just contact me offline, and I'll see if I can help you with that.
Yeah, I will do that because I'm using an old Ubuntu via WSL, so I think the library are not supported or things like that. But now that you're saying about the Docker, I was not going the Docker way, so I don't know what I was doing, to be frank. So
do any of us done?
Well, it's because sometimes I just want to test something, and I frankly I did not really properly read the documentation. So yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah, I know. That means it's a documentation fail. That's what I always say to people. Tell me how to make the docs better.
No, it's good. Oh, Lydia, that was so interesting. Now I just want to go test all of this. So by the time that this episode is released, probably the V3 will be live from what you were saying. So if people want to test, but it's already possible to test the V3 anyway.
It is, yeah, absolutely. You can just install the latest. Actually, just go to v3.wails.io, and from there you'll have all of the instructions.
Nice.
Perfect. All right.
And this should probably be out when we release this episode. So
I hope so. No pressure. But
yeah, no pressure. It's a promise. You heard. No. But all right. So any closing comment before we wrap up?
No, not really. Just it's such a big project. It's managed to get to 35,000 stars, which I never ever thought would happen. The support of people has just been phenomenal. I mean, 35,000 sounds like really a lot, but there's a Claude.md file that has like 180,000 stars on GitHub. So I think these days, we live in wild times, right? But yeah, like I just really appreciate all of the support that everybody's shown, and we do have some major sponsors as well, which is cool. Yeah, it's used in Hightail, like the game as the launcher, which is pretty wild. It's like got 1 million installs. So yeah, I think if anybody out there is listening and has this idea for a project, don't let anything hold you back, and just read up on how to be an open source maintainer involuntarily.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Well, other than the stars, I think I'm seeing Wails being recommended all of the time, especially on Reddit and whatnot. So, I mean, it's you built something very great. You and the community, and thank you for that. It's a great project.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, even Claude knows how to build Wails apps now, so that's wild.
All right. So thanks for joining us today, and we will try. Let's all try the V3, and we will send you the gentle comment in the GitHub issues if anything happened.
Brilliant. It's been so much fun. I think it's time I go to bed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Bye.